you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. It's been a few days since I've done one of these wide-ranging transfer portal news and notes updates. And so what I want to do now is go ahead and do exactly that. I want to talk about commitments, visits, rumors, innuendo, hypotheticals, what's true, what's not, who's getting better, who's getting worse. We're going to have a lot of fun over these next couple minutes. It is crazy. It is a wild time of year, but it is also an extremely fun time of year. So let's get into it all. I want to start in a place, and we did a long form segment on this on Monday, but I do want to start in a little magical place we call Portal Heaven, AKA Fayetteville, Arkansas, AKA, I got one question for you. Can anything stop the Big Pig invasion? That is right. Eric Musselman has done it again. As on Monday, he added his fifth transfer this offseason with Louisville guard El Ellis, leading scorer, committing to the Hawks. And so let's get into it. Let's discuss. Let's debate. Because, listen, like everything else that Muss has done this offseason, pretty much, I mean, I like the move. El Ellis averaged 17.5 points per game this year. And he did it, let's be honest, on maybe the worst high major team we've ever seen. Like, that's not hyperbole. I'm not a big analytics guy, but I was told by my buddy Nick Coffey that in the KenPom era, since KenPom has been putting numbers into his little computer, Louisville was the worst high major team in the history of the KenPom era, okay? And so I bring it up because despite all that, El Ellis led that team with 17.5 points per game, 17.7 to be exact. And he did it as the focal point of every game plan, every film session, every study of the opposing team. He did it on a team that averaged 63 points per game. He did it on a team where there was one other player who averaged more than 9 points per game. Okay. Louisville was terrible. El Ellis was awesome. And now you put him on a team with other dudes that are like real players. El Ellis has a chance to be really good at Arkansas. Okay. As I said, fifth different transfer for Arkansas this offseason. And I think what stands out to me is the fact that really when I look at that team, all five guys on that roster do a little bit something a little bit different to help their team win. And here's the crazy part. They're all backcourt guys and wings. I think you can argue when you put them together, all five guys that have come in the portal, plus Layden Blocker, a true freshman next year, 5-star player. I think you could legitimately argue Arkansas is going to have the best backcourt in college basketball. In terms of how El Ellis fits in, a couple things. One, they all do something a little bit different, like I said. Keon Menafield, who's coming from Washington, he's kind of the beat you off the dribble, get to the bucket, get to the foul line kind of guy. Tremont Mark is coming from Houston, 6'5", big, athletic, defensive, rebound, also gets 10 points per game. Can't play at Houston if you don't defend and you don't rebound. Tremont Mark is bringing that to Arkansas. Khalif Battle, another big kid, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in that range. Pure bucket getter, 21 points per game 2 seasons ago, was Temple's leading scorer this year. Jeremiah Davenport, who's more of a wing than he is a real kind of guard. Another guy, pure three-point shooter. And so you add it up. El Ellis, by the way, just gets buckets. Everybody does a little bit something different. And so I love the fit of all those guys. I love the fact that you have two marquee front court players returning, Trevin Brazile, Jalen Graham. You're adding another marquee front court player, Bay Fall, a McDonald's All-American. I look at that Arkansas roster, man. Listen, it's early. Stuff's going to change. Kansas, as we're going to discuss in a minute, is going to get some guys. Kentucky is not going to go out quietly in the portal. There will be other moves that are made. I'm just telling you, this looks like as good of a roster as you could possibly have going into 2023, 2024. It's not quite Duke. It might not be UConn or whatever. But you talk about another team that's good enough to win the SEC, that's good enough to make a Final Four, that's good enough to make a deep tournament run. This is it. I would argue this team is as good on paper as any that Muss has had. I know Torres last year, you overrated them. Well, I don't really think I overrated them. Trevin Brazile got hurt. They were 9-1. By the way, Nick Smith was in and out of the lineup. So the point I'm trying to make is I really like last year's team. Didn't quite go well in the regular season, but they still made the Sweet 16 and really like them going into 2023, 2024 as well. El Ellis, the newest Arkansas Razorback. Let's keep going with some other news and notes, and we'll stay with the commitments because just mentioned Kansas is going to make their moves. Well, on Wednesday, Kansas made their first move. Bill Self was moving his little chess pieces across the board. There was a kid named Nick Timberlake, shooting guard Towson, okay? 17.5 points per game, 41% three-point shooting. This guy was the apple of the eye of pretty much all the major programs in college basketball. UConn wanted him, had him on an official visit last weekend. North Carolina wanted him, had him on a visit a few weeks ago. UConn was actually the perceived favorite by just about everybody in the industry. I heard nothing but UConn. Took the visit, left campus, didn't commit. That's when you start, and everyone knows I'm a UConn guy. That's when you start to worry. Wait a second now. This kid was supposed to commit on campus. What happened? Oh my goodness, what's going on? Well, on Wednesday, he decides that he is going to be a Kansas Jayhawk. So listen, from the UConn perspective, I haven't looked into it enough, but this is about Kansas. This is about Bill Self. Let me just say this. It's been a quiet couple weeks in Lawrence. Jalen Wilson, Grady Dick declared for the draft. We expected that. Everybody else of meaning is back. Kevin McCullough's kind of somewhere in the middle. But you knew that Kansas had to make moves in the portal. You knew that they would, and this is the first big one. And I think it's an important one as well. Because at the end of the day, Kansas, one, needs bodies. They lost a lot of back-end guys to the portal on the other end, like backup guys and stuff like that. But two, they also need guys in the backcourt that can get them buckets. As I said, Jalen Wilson, leading scorer in the NBA, heading to the draft. Grady Dick behind him, second leading scorer, headed to the draft. So you look at a team that won the Big 12 regular season, Big 12 tournament runner-up. That's 34 points per game out the door. And Kevin McCullough, the third leading scorer, is still very much testing the NBA draft waters. So Kansas needed a big name. Kansas needed somebody that can get them buckets. They get exactly that in Nick Timberlake. And now the interesting part. You know who's coming to campus this week for Kansas? Hunter Dickinson, Big Dickinson energy, baby. That's right. So we'll see. Bill Self, he went fishing. He reeled one in. Now let's see if he can get the big fish later this week. We're going to give you a Hunter Dickinson update momentarily, but he will be visiting Kansas on Thursday. And my hunch is we probably get a commitment not that far after. A couple other commitments of note. One, busy week. Speaking of Big Dickinson energy, how about some Big Rick energy? I'm not talking about Pitino, although we'll get to him in a minute. I'm talking about my boy Rick Barnes. How about this? In a 24-hour period, very busy day, very busy 24 hours for Rick Barnes in Tennessee. They add Justin Gainey, guard from USC Upstate, okay? So it's important to note that this kid was a very good player at Upstate this year, a player that had a major impact, South Carolina Upstate. He was their second leading scorer, or their leading scorer, excuse me. By the way, I think I said Justin Gainey. That's the name of the assistant coach at Tennessee. Jordan Gainey is his son, 15 points per game, 35% three-point shooting. That is a guy that they need. Not saying he's going to be, the star of the team, but they need guys. We all watched Tennessee this year. They need guys that can make shots, get buckets. That's exactly what this guy brings to the table. And then the big one on Wednesday night, Chris Ledlam, 6'6" forward, played at Harvard the last couple years, 18.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game. He commits to Tennessee. He was very coveted. St. John's wanted him bad, had him on a visit last weekend. Tennessee wanted him, obviously, and Indiana wanted him. He instead chooses Tennessee, and this is a big one. Now, it's ironic because I saw John Rothstein tweet this, and he's 100% right. You know who this kid reminds me of? He's got a lot of Grant Williams to his game. A little bit shorter, a little bit stockier, kind of a bowling ball, but he gets the job done. And I'll be curious to see if he can have an impact at the high major level after 4 years in the Ivy. But this is all good news for Tennessee. On top of the fact that on Tuesday night, they officially got back Santiago Vescovi for a fifth year. He has another year of eligibility, and he decided to return. So listen, we know who Tennessee is. We know what their strengths are. We know what their weaknesses are, but they need bodies, and they need dudes who can put the ball in the basket. Those two additions can. Vescovi can. I think we're probably looking at a little bit more of a well-rounded Tennessee team next year, assuming, of course, that, nothing major happens. And, of course, that Zakai Ziegler comes back from injury. So keep an eye on all that. Let's keep it going. A couple other commitments, and we'll get to some portal, rumors and innuendo. This is a big one. Stephen Ashworth, guard, Utah State. Woo! Really good player. So Utah State, if you remember this year, made the NCAA tournament. Utah State was a very good team in the Mountain West, made the NCAA tournament. They actually lost to Missouri in round one. But their best player was a player named Stephen Ashworth. 16 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, 43% three-point shooting. He committed to Creighton, okay? So this is big from the Creighton perspective because Creighton, who did they just lose? Ryan Nembhard. Need another guard for the backcourt, and now you look at Creighton. Assuming nothing else crazy happens, and there are rumors out there about somebody that could be transferring, it's all rumors at this point. But I bring it up because if they keep that core together, I don't think they really missed that much of a beat without Ryan Nembhard. As a matter of fact, I think this kid Ashworth, he's an older player, took a Mormon mission. First time in a press release, by the way, I saw Greg McDermott welcome Steve Ashworth and his wife to the family. So that's what kind of veteran that you're getting there. Steve Ashworth at Creighton is a big one. Last commit, I'm probably going to miss a couple, but I want to get to some other updates. Chance Westry, that's the one I want to talk about. 6'6" guard, played at Auburn this year, was a true freshman. Now, he got hurt, but he entered the portal. He ends up at Syracuse. And let me say this. I've criticized Syracuse, made fun of their NIL program a few days ago. This is a really nice pickup for them. Now, a lot of people don't know about this kid because he was hurt last year, but this was about a top 30 or so recruit who has kind of the body and frame of an NBA player, and it's just about getting him up to speed from the high major level. But this is a kid that can play at the high major level and have an effect. He joins JJ Starling, obviously the former McDonald's All-American from Notre Dame, who committed to Syracuse out of the portal early in the cycle. Finally, let's get to a couple rumors before we get out of here. First of all, right before I started recording, Max Abmas, Oral Roberts, dropped a little Twitter pin in Austin, Texas. Unless he's there to do the Joe Rogan show, which would be kind of crazy if he was, by the way. Think to me, that means that he's probably going to visit Texas. It appears as though it is down to Texas and Kansas State, visited Kansas State previously. This is going to be a really, really, really interesting one, okay? Because he is the kind of lead guard that both of those teams need. Texas loses Marcus Carr. Tyrese Hunter's good on the ball, off the ball, needs some help. Tyrese Hunter's also testing the waters. I think he'll be back, though. And then Kansas State, it goes without saying. You lose Marquise Noel. Max Abmas is almost a perfect replacement for him. Obviously, I think everybody knows the story, but Max Abmas from Oral Roberts played the last 4 years there, averaged 20-plus points per game the last 3 years. He was actually the nation's leading scorer in the 2021 season. 24 points per game, has averaged 20-plus points. Either one, I think he's a great fit. It feels as though right now Texas is trending in the right direction. As I said, the pin was dropped on Wednesday night. Max Abmas at Texas. By the way, speaking of pins dropping, Tyler Perry, Conference USA Player of the Year, 6-foot guard, North Texas, 17.5 points per game. He is down to 4 schools. Very interesting story, by the way. He actually visited Arkansas last weekend. My intel is that they wanted him to commit. They liked him a lot. But L. Ellis was ready to commit. They said, if you're not ready to commit right now, we're taking somebody else. They take L. Ellis. Tyler Perry's back on the free agent market, and he is down to 4 schools. Ole Miss, remember, Chris Beard and Ole Miss. Don't forget, Chris Beard is now the head coach at Ole Miss. Kansas State, who we just mentioned. Florida, they're doing a good job in the portal. And also, Texas Tech. Remember, Tyler Perry comes from North Texas. They won the NIT. Grant McCaslin's the head coach. He leaves. He goes to North Texas. Tyler Perry, could he end up there? Right now, it appears as though Ole Miss will get the last visit. Ole Miss, he will be visiting on Thursday, and we'll see if we get a commitment soon. It's down to those 4. He canceled a visit to Alabama. Arkansas kind of crossed him off the list. Fascinated to see where he ends up. Finally, let me say this. The Hunter Dickinson sweepstakes continue to be fascinating, okay? So Hunter Dickinson, as I mentioned, he took 2 visits last weekend, Georgetown and Maryland. Think everybody saw that Georgetown visit where they took him out to a fine dining experience at a little place called Chick-fil-A. That really did happen. He was at Chick-fil-A for dinner. And this weekend, he's visiting Kansas. And by this weekend, I mean Thursday. So he's visiting Kansas on Thursday. And I think this thing is starting to come down to the wire. Now, the interesting twist, I just did a separate video on this. Hunter Dickinson is also rumored to be interested in Kentucky. Now, the contingency there, I should say, is that is assuming that Oscar Tshiebwe declares for the draft and stays in the draft. Tshiebwe has declared. He has not decided if he is going to stay in or not. And so I bring it up because my hunch right now, I'm going to call a little bit of Hunter Dickinson bluff here. I do think he's maybe interested in Kentucky. The problem is Oscar Tshiebwe is not making a final decision on the NBA draft anytime soon. He's going to go through the process. He's going to wait. I think the deadline to withdraw is really like the middle to the end of May. So he's going to go through the process. He's going to work out. He's going to meet with teams. He's going to do physicals. He's going to probably go to the combine. That result ain't coming anytime soon. So the question becomes one of 3 things. One, is Hunter Dickinson actually interested? But then assuming that he is Calipari going to wait for some decision on Oscar Tshiebwe, or is he going to say bird in the hand is better than the one at the NBA draft combine? Because if I'm Calipari, I'm not waiting around if Hunter Dickinson is actually interested. Now, the question, is Hunter Dickinson interested? I don't know that I believe it. I think this might be a leveraging ploy on his part, and it remains to be seen. Again, Hunter Dickinson visiting Kansas on Thursday. My hunch is that we get a decision on Hunter Dickinson over the next couple of days. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. You see that little subscribe button down there? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit on all notifications so you can get updates every time the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel goes live. Thank you for listening. New episodes of the Aaron Torres Pod every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Make sure you're subscribed.